All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his act being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then the soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard a formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose, well saved a world too wide for his trunk shank. And his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. This evening we have a journey to make, a journey through the 7 ages of man. And so that you may understand the signposts of that journey, occasionally I'll have to point the way, which is what I'm doing right now. About 99% of the words you will hear this evening were written by William Shakespeare. So I don't think you're going to have any difficulty identifying the 1% that comes from me. At first, the infant mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Well, Shakespeare didn't write any soliloquies for babies, nor for that matter for whining schoolboys. But children were very important. Here is a sonnet. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white, when lofty trees I see, barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green, all girded up in sheaves, born on the bier with white and bristly beard, then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow. And nothing gainst time's scythe can make defense save breed, to brave him when he takes thee hence. But bringing children into the world is a risky business for mother and child alike. Pericles, Prince of Tyre, in the midst of a violent storm at sea, greets his newborn daughter and commits the lifeless body of his beloved wife to the waves. Oh, you gods, why do you make us love your goodly gifts and snatch them straight away? Now mild may be thy life, for a more blusterous birth had never babe. Quiet and gentle thy conditions, for thou art the rudeliest welcome to this world that ever was prince's child. happy what follows. For thou hast had the most chiding nativity that ever wind, fire, and water could herald thee from the womb. Even at the first, thy loss is more than can thy portage quit, with all thou canst find here. Now the good gods throw their best eyes upon thee. Most wretched queen. A terrible childbed hast thou had, my dear. No light, no fire. The unfriendly elements forgot thee utterly. Nor have I time to give thee hallow to thy grave, but straight must cast thee scarcely coffined in the ooze, where for a monument upon thy bones and I remaining lamps, the belching whale and humming water must o'erwhelm thy course, lying with simple shells. Shakespeare had 3 children, Susanna and the twins, Judith and Hamnet. But Hamnet died at the age of 11. The loss of a child is of all mourning the worst. Grief fills the room up of my absent child, lies in his bed, walks up and down with me, puts on his pretty looks, repeats his words, remembers me of all his gracious parts, stuffs out his vacant garments with his form. Then have I reason to be fond of grief. But most boys grow up to become the lovers of the third age. From A Midsummer Night's Dream, Oberon, king of the fairies, weaves the spell. My gentle Puck, come hither. Thou rememberest since once I sat upon a promontory and heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath that the rude sea grew civil at her song, and certain stars shot madly from their spheres to hear the sea maid's music. That very time I saw, but thou couldst not, flying between the cold moon and the earth, Cupid, all armed. A certain aim he took at a fair vestal throned by the west, and loosed his love shaft smartly from his bow, as it should pierce 100,000 hearts. But I might see young Cupid's fiery shaft quenched in the chaste beams of the watery moon, and the imperial votress passed on in maiden meditation fancy-free. Yet marked I where the bolt of Cupid fell. It fell upon a little western flower, before milk white, now purple with love's wound, and maidens call it love in idleness. Fetch me that flower, the herb I showed thee once. The juice of it, on sleeping eyelids laid, will make our man or woman madly dote upon the next live creature that it sees. Fetch me this herb, and be thou here again ere the Leviathan can swim a league. And Puck goes, swift to the arrow from a Tartar's bow, putting a girdle round about the earth in 40 minutes. Welcome, wanderer. What hast thou flower there? I prithee, give it me. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows, where ox slips and the nodding violet grows, quite over-canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses, and with eglantine. There sleeps Titania sometime of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight. And there the snake throws her enamelled skin weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in. And with the juice of this I'll streak her eyes and make her full of hateful fantasies. What thou seest when thou dost wake, do it for thy true love take. Love and languish for his sake. Be it hunts, or cat, or bear, pard, or boar with bristled hair, in thine eye that doth appear, when thou wakest, it is thy dear. Wake when some vile thing is near. Yes, mischievous spirits. Mercutio explains to his young friend, Romeo, how lovers' brains are manipulated by these supernatural beings. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. She is the fairies' midwife, and she comes in shape no bigger than an agate stone on the forefinger of an alderman, drawn with a team of little atomies athwart men's noses as they lie asleep. Her wagon spokes made of long spinners' legs, the cover of the wings of grasshoppers, her traces of the smallest spider's web, her whip of cricket's bone, the lash of film, her wagoner, a small grey-coated gnat, not half so big, a round little worm pricked from the lazy finger of a maid. Her chariot is an empty hazelnut made by the joiner squirrel, or ill grub, time out of mind the fairies' coachmakers. And in this state she gallops night by night through lovers' brains, and then they dream on love, or courtiers' knees who dream on curtsies straight, or lawyers' fingers who straight dream on fees, or ladies' lips who straight on kisses dream, which oft the angry Mab with blisters plagues, because their breaths with sweetmeats tainted are. Sometimes she gallops o'er a courtier's nose, and then dreams he of smelling out a suit. And sometimes comes she with a tithe pig's tail, tickling a parson's nose as he lies asleep, and then dreams he of another benefice. Sometimes she driveth o'er a soldier's neck, and then dreams he of cutting foreign throats, of ambuscados, Spanish blades, of hells 5 fathom deep, and then anon drums in his ear, at which he starts and wakes, and being thus frighted, swears a prayer or two, and sleeps again. This is that very Mab that plats the manes of horses in the night, and bakes the elf locks and foul sluttish hairs, which once untangled much misfortune bodes. This is the hag, when maids lie on their backs, that presses them, and learns them first to bear, making them women of good carriage. But you know, young men can be resistant, at least at first. Here's Barone from Love's Labour's Lost, rejecting the whole idea. And I, forsooth, in love? I that have been love's whip, a very beadle to a humorous sigh, a critic, nay, a night-watch constable, a domineering pedant o'er the boy, than whom no mortal so magnificent, this wimpled, wily, purblind, wayward boy, this senior, junior, giant dwarf, Dan Cupid, regent of love rhymes, lord of folded arms, the anointed sovereign of sighs and groans, liege of all loiterers and malcontents, dread prince of blackets, king of codpieces, sole imperator and great general of trotting parators. Oh, my little heart. And I to be a corporal of his field, and wear his colours like a tumbler's hoop. What I love, I sue, I seek a wife, a woman, that is like a German clock. Still a repairing, ever out of frame, never going aright, being a watch, but being watched, that it may still go right. Nay, to be perjured, which is worst of all, and among 3, to love the worst of all. A whitely wanton with a velvet brow, with 2 pitchforks stuck in her face for eyes. Aye, and by heaven, one that will do the deed, though Argus were her eunuch and her guard. And I to sigh for her, to watch for her, to pray for her, go to. It is a plague that Cupid will impose for my neglect of his almighty, dreadful little might. Well, I will love, write, sigh, pray, sue, and groan. Some men must love my lady, and some Joan. Well, having got that out of his system, he then falls hook, line, and sinker. You see, he and his friends have taken a vow to study for 4 years and to allow no women in their lives. Well, as you know, there's nothing worse than a convert. Ever to then, affections, men at arms, consider what you first did swear unto, to fast, to study, and to see no woman. Flat treason against the kingly state of youth. Say, can you fast? Your stomachs are too young, and abstinence engenders maladies. Oh, we have made a vow to study, lords, and in that vow we have forsworn our books. For when would you, my liege, or you, in leaden contemplation have found out such fiery numbers as the prompting eyes of beauty's tutors have enriched you with? Other slow arts entirely keep the brain, and therefore finding barren practisers scarce show a harvest of their heavy toil. But love, first learned in a lady's eyes, lives not alone immured in the brain, but with the motion of all elements courses swift as thought in every power, and gives to every power a double power above their functions and their offices. It adds a precious seeing to the eye. A lover's eyes will gaze and the eagle blind. A lover's ear will hear the lowest sound when the suspicious head of theft is stopped. Love's feeling is more soft and sensible than are the tender horns of cockled snails. Love's tongue proves dainty Bacchus, gross in taste. For valor, is not love a Hercules, still climbing trees in the Hesperides, subtle as Sphinx and sweet and musical as bright Apollo's lute strung with his hair? And when love speaks, the voice of all the gods makes heaven drowsy with the harmony. Never durst poet touch a pen to write until his ink were tempered with love's sighs. Oh, then his lines would ravish savage ears and plant in tyrants mild humility. From women's eyes this doctrine I deride. They sparkle still the right Promethean fire. They are the books, the arts, the academes that show, contain, and nourish all the world. Else none at all in aught proves excellent. Then fools you were these women to forswear, or keeping what is sworn you will prove fools. For wisdom's sake a word that all men love, or for love's sake a word that loves all men, or for men's sake the authors of these women, or women's sake by whom we men are men. Let us once lose our oaths to find ourselves, or else we lose ourselves to keep our oaths. It is religion to be thus forsworn, for charity itself fulfills the law. And who can sever love from charity? Of course, love, the all-powerful, is not only directed at human beings. The servant, Launce, who has just been told that he must leave his home and follow his master to the Duke's court, Launce addresses the one being whom he truly loves. I think Crab, my dog, be the sourest natured dog that lives. Me mother, weeping, me father, howling. my sister crying, our maid screaming, the cat wringing her hands. And yet would not this hard-hearted cur shed one tear nor speaks a word? One that I brought up from a puppy, one that I saved from drowning when 3 or 4 of his blind brothers and sisters went to it. I have taught him, as one would say precisely, thus will I teach a dog. I was sent to deliver him as a present to Mistress Sylvia from my master, and I comes no sooner in the dining chamber than he steps me up to her trencher and steals her capon's leg. Oh, 'tis a foul thing when a cur cannot keep himself in all companies. Nay, if I had not had more wit than he, to take a fault upon me that he did, I think verily he'd have been hanged for it. Sure as I live, he'd have suffered for it. You shall judge. He thrust me himself into the company of 3 or 4 gentleman-like dogs under the Duke's table. He had not been there, bless the mark, a pissing while. But the whole chamber smelt him. "Out with the dog," says one. "What cur is that?" says another. "Hang him up," says a third. "Whip him out," says the Duke. I, having been acquainted with the smell before, knew it was crab, and goes me to the fellow that whips the dogs. "Friend," quoth I, "you mean to whip the dog?" "Aye, marry do I," quoth he. "You do him the more wrong," quoth I. "'Twas I did the thing you wanted." He makes no more ado, but he whips me out. How many masters would do this for his servant? Nay, I've sat in the stocks for puddings he hath stolen, otherwise he'd have been executed. I've stood on the pillory for geese he hath killed, otherwise he'd have suffered for it. Thou think'st not of this now. Nay, I remember the trick you served me when I took my leave of Mistress Sylvia. Did I not bid thee mark me and do as I do? When didst thou see me heave up my leg and make forfeit against a gentlewoman's love? 3 sonnets on love. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more tender. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou erst, nor shall death drag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou goest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to me. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come, love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with force compare. Young and naive, Proteus, one of the two gentlemen of Verona, is actually bowled over by the whole idea of love. Here, he has just said goodbye to his best friend, Valentine. He after honor hunts, I after love. He leaves his friends to dignify them more. I leave myself, my friends, and all for love. Thou, Julia, thou hast metamorphosed me, made me neglect my studies, lose my time, war with good counsel, set the world at naught, made wit with musing weak, heart sick with thought. Oh, how this spring of love resembleth the uncertain glory of an April day, which now shows all the beauty of the sun, and by a cloud takes all away. The cloud in question is Proteus, his father, who, disapproving of his son's love match, decides to send him off to join his friend Valentine at the Duke's court some distance away. And it is there that, for the first time, Proteus encounters Sylvia, Valentine's beloved. And guess what happened? Even as one heat another heat expels, or as one nail by strength drives out another, so the remembrance of my former love is by a newer object quite forgotten. Is it mine eye or Valentina's praise, her true perfection, or my false transgression that makes me reasonless to reason thus? She is fair, and so is Julia that I love, that I did love. For now my love is thawed, which like a waxen image gainst a fire bears no impression of the thing it was. Methinks my zeal to Valentine is cold, and that I love him not as I was wont. Oh, but I love his lady too much. And that's the reason I love him so little. How shall I dote on her with more advice, that thus without advice begin to love her? 'Tis but her picture I have yet beheld, and that hath dazzled my reason's light. But when I look on her perfections, there is no reason but I shall be blind. If I can check my erring love, I will. If not, to compass her, I'll use my skill. Even those upright men who scorn the very idea of love find that they are not entirely immune to its subtle force. In Measure for Measure, Angelo, the puritanical deputy entrusted with administering the moral law in Vienna, has just been visited by Isabella, a novice, a young novice nun. She has begged him to reprieve her brother, who is under sentence of death for fornication. She has just left his chamber. What's this? What's this? Is this her fault or mine? The tempter or the tempted? Who sins most? Huh? Not she. Nor doth she tempt. But it is I that, lying by the violet in the sun, corrupt with virtuous season. Can it be that maiden's modesty may more o'ercome our senses than woman's lightness? Having waste ground enough, shall we desire to raise the sanctuary and pitch our evils there? Oh, fine, fine, fine. What art thou? Or what dost thou? Angela, dost thou desire her foully for those things that make her good? Oh, let her brother live. Thieves for their robbery have authority when judges steal themselves. What do I love her that I desire to hear her speak again and feast upon her eyes? What is thy dream of? Oh, cunning enemy, that to catch a saint with saints dost bait thy hook. Most dangerous is that temptation that doth goad us on to sin in loving virtue. Never could the strumpet, with all her double figure, art, and nature, once stir my temper. But this virtuous maid subdues me quite. Ever till now, when men were fond, I smiled and wondered how. The expense of spirit in a waste of shame is lust in action, and till action, lust is perjured, murderous, bloody, full of blame, savage, extreme, rude, cruel, not to trust, enjoyed no sooner, but despised straight, past reason hunted, and no sooner had, past reason hated, as a swallowed bait on purpose laid to make the taker mad, mad in pursuit and in possession, so had, having, and in quest to have extreme, a bliss in proof, and proved a very woe, before a joy proposed behind a dream. All this the world well knows, yet none knows well to shun the heaven that leads men to this hell. Hell, indeed, when jealousy enters the equation. Master Ford from the merry wives of Windsor, torments himself with the suspicion that his own merry wife is having an adulterous affair with the fat knight, Sir John Falstaff.
What a damned Epicurean rascal is this? My heart is ready to crack with impatience. Who says this is improvident jealousy? My wife hath sent to him, the hour is fixed, the match is made. Would any man have thought this? See the hell of having a false woman? My bed shall be abused, my coffers ransacked, my reputation gnawn at. And I shall not only receive this villainous wrong, but stand under the adoption of abominable terms. And by him that does me this wrong, terms, names. Amaiva, sounds well. Barbarism, well. Lucifer, well. But they are the devil's additions, the names of fiends. But cuckold, widow, cuckold. The devil himself hath not such a name. Page is an ass, a secure ass. He will trust his wife. He will not be jealous. I would rather trust a Fleming with my butter, Parson Hugh the Welshman with my cheese, an Irishman with my aquavita bottle, or a thief to walk my ambling gelding than I will trust my wife with herself. Then she plots, then she ruminates, then she devises, and what they think in their hearts they may effect. They will break their hearts, but they will effect. God be praised for my jealousy. 11 o'clock the hour. I will prevent this, protect my wife, be revenged on Falstaff, and laugh at Page. I will avert it. Better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. 5, cuckoo.
Another sonnet. When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies, that she might think me some untutored youth, unlearned in the world's false subtleties, thus vainly thinking that she thinks me young, although she knows my days are past the best. Simply I credit her false-speaking tongue. On both sides thus is simple truth suppressed. But wherefore says she not, she is unjust? And wherefore say not I, that I am old? Oh, love's best habit is in seeming trust, and age in love loves not to have years told. Therefore I lie with her, and she with me, and in our thoughts, by lies, we flattered be. And that's enough of the lovers. Soldiers next. In Shakespeare's theatre, no lighting effects, not much scenery, and the entire atmosphere of battle preparation, indeed battle itself, to be done with words. Now entertain conjecture of a time when creeping murmur and the pouring dark fills the wide vessel of the universe. From camp to camp, through the foul womb of night, the hum of either army stilly sounds, that the fixed sentinels almost receive the secret whispers of each other's watch. Fire answers fire, and through their paly flames each battle sees the other's umbered face. Steed threatens steed in high and boastful neigh, piercing the night's dull ear. And from the tents, the armorers accomplishing the knights with busy hammers closing rivets up, give dreadful note of preparation. The country cocks do crow, the clocks do toll, and the third hour of drowsy morning name. Proud of their numbers and secure in soul, the confident and over-lusty French do the low-rated English play at dice, and chide the crippled tardy-gated knight, who like a foul and ugly witch doth limp so tediously away. The poor condemned English, like sacrifices by their watchful fires, sit patiently and inly ruminate the morning's danger. And their gesture sad, investing lank lean cheeks and worn coats, presenteth them unto the gazing moon so many horrid ghosts. Oh now, who will behold the royal captain of this ruined band, walking from watch to watch, from tent to tent? Let him cry praise and glory on his head, for forth he goes and visits all his host, bids them good morrow with a modest smile, and calls them brothers, friends, and countrymen. Upon his royal face there is no note how dread an army hath enrounded him, nor doth he dedicate one jot of colour to the weary and o'er-watched night, but freshly looks and overbears a taint with cheerful semblance and sweet majesty, that every wretch pining and pale before, beholding him, plucks comfort from his looks. A largesse, like the sun, his liberal eye doth give to every one, thawing cold fear, that mean and gentle all behold, as may unworthiness define, a little touch of Harry in the night. This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that shall outlive this day and come safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispian. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin Crispians shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so vile. This day shall gentle his condition, and gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here, whilst unhold their manhood's cheek, whilst any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. But lurking in the shadows, there are always those less successful men whose ambition has not led them on to glory, and who chide at the success of the champions. Cassius speaks of Julius Caesar. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self I had as lief not be as live to be in awe of such a thing as I myself. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. For once, Upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, "Darest thou, Cassius, now leap into this angry flood with me and swim to yonder point?" Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent roared, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive at the point proposed, Caesar cried, "Help me, Cassius, or I sink." I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man is now become a god, and Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body of Caesar carelessly, but not on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this god did shake. His coward lips did from their colour fly, and that same eye, whose bend doth awe the world, did lose his lustre. I did hear him groan, aye, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books. Alas, it cried, "Give me some drink, Titinius," as a sick girl. Ye gods, it doth amaze me, a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world, and bear the palm alone. Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. Civil disobedience, civil unrest, the collapsing of the state, all foreseen in the stars, at least according to the Duke of Gloucester in King Lear. His bastard son, Edmund, whom we shall hear in a moment, Edmund thinks otherwise.
These late eclipses of the sun and moon portend no good to us. Though the wisdom of nature can reason it thus and thus, yet nature finds itself scourged by the sequent effects. Love cools, friendship falls off, brothers divide, in cities mutinies, in countries discord, in palaces treason, and the bond cracked twixt son and father. This villain of mine falls under the prediction, their son against father. The king falls from bias of nature, there's father against child. We have seen the best of our times, machinations, hollowness, ruination, and all disorders follow us disquietly to our graves.
This is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, not in the surfeit of our own behavior, we make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and the stars, as if we were villains by necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and trenchers by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence, and all that we are evil in by a divine thrusting on. An admirable evasion of the whole master man, to lay his goatish disposition to the charge of a star. My father compounded with my mother under the dragon's tail, and my nativity was under Ursa Major, so that it follows that I am rough and lecherous. Fucked.
I should have been that I am, as the maidenliest star in the firmament twinkled on my bastardizing. I thrive, I prosper. Now, gods, stand up for bastards. After the soldier comes the justice, and in medieval times, justice was embodied in the person of the king. Good or bad, the king was at the top of the tree. After the interval, we will meet such a king. In this case, Richard II, as he confronts his cousin Henry Bolingbroke, who has returned rebelliously from exile and who eventually will force Richard to relinquish his crown. You know, Richard II was not really a very good king. But he was a wonderful showman.
We are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourselves thy lawful king. And if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship. For well we know no hand of blood and bone can grip the sacred handle of our scepter, unless he do profane, steal, or usurp. And though you think that all, as you have done, have torn their souls by turning them from us, and we are barren and bereft of friends, yet know my Master, God omnipotent, is mustering in his clouds on our behalf armies of pestilence, and they shall strike your children, yet unborn and unbegot, that lift your vassal hands against my head and threat the glory of my precious crown. Tell Bolingbroke, for yon methinks he stands, that every stride he makes upon my land is dangerous treason. He has come to ope the purple testament of bleeding war. But ere the crown he looks for live in peace, 10,000 bloody crowns of mother's son shall ill become the flower of England's face, change the complexion of her maid pale peace to scarlet indignation, and bedew her pastures grass with faithful English blood. O God, but this tongue of mine that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man should take it off again with words of sooth. Oh, that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name, or that I could forget what I have been, or not remember what I must be now. Swell'st thou, proud heart, I'll give thee scope to beat, since foes have scope to beat both thee and me. Down, down I come, like glistering phaeton, wanting the manage of unruly jades, in the base court where kings grow base, to come at traitors' calls and do them grace. In the base court come down,
Down court, down king, for night owls shriek, where mounting larks should sing. What must the king do now? Must he submit? The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose the name of king? A God's name, let it go. I'll give my jewels for a set of beads, my gorgeous palace for a hermitage, my gay apparel for an almsman's gown, my figured goblets for a dish of wood, my scepter for a farmer's walking staff, my figured goblets for a dish of wood, and my large kingdom for a little grave, a little grave, an obscure grave, or I'll be buried in the king's highway, some way of common trade where subjects' feet may hourly trample on their sovereign's head. For on my heart they tread now whilst I live, and buried once, why not upon my head? Would not this ill do well? Well, I see I talk but idly, and you laugh at me. What says King Bolingbroke? Will his majesty give Richard leave to live till Richard die? Oh, you make a leg. And Bolingbroke says, I. Alack, why am I sent for to a king before I have shook off the regal thoughts wherewith I reigned? I hardly yet have learned to insinuate, flatter, bow, and bend my knee, give sorrow leave a while to tutor me to this submission. Yet I well remember the favours of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, all hail to me? So Judas did to Christ. Yet he and 12 found truth in all but one. I and 12,000 none. God save the king! And no men say amen. Am I both priest and clerk? Well then, amen. God save the king, although I be not he. And yet, amen, if heaven do think in me. Now mark me, how I will undo myself. I give this heavy weight from off my head, and this unwieldy scepter from my hand, the pride of kingly sway from out my heart. With mine own tongue I deny my sacred state, with mine own tears release all duteous oaths. All pomp and majesty I do forswear, my acts, decrees, and statutes I deny. God pardon all oaths that are broke to me. God keep all vows unbroke are made to thee. Make me that nothing have, with nothing grieved, and thou with all please, that hast all achieved. Long mayst thou live in Richard's seat to sit, and soon lie Richard in an earthly pit. God save King Harry, and King Richard says, and send him many years of sunshine days. Oh, that I were a mockery king of snow, standing before the sun of Bolingbroke to melt myself away in water drops. Good king, great king, and yet not greatly good. And if my word be sterling yet in England, let it command a mirror to the strait, that it may show me what a face I have, since it is bankrupt of its majesty. Give me the glass, and therein when I read. No deeper wrinkles yet. Hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine, and made no deeper wounds? O flattering glass, like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this face the face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Is this the face that like the sun did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies, and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke?
A brittle glory shineth in this face, as brittle as the glory is the face. Oh, there it is, cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport, how soon my sorrow hath destroyed my faith. There are not many happy kings in Shakespeare. Henry Bolingbroke, having achieved his crown, finds neither contentment nor rest. How many thousand of my poorest subjects are at this hour asleep? sleep, O gentle sleep, nature's soft nurse, how have I frighted thee, that thou no more wilt weigh mine eyelids down and steep my senses in forgetfulness? Why rather sleep liest thou in smoky cribs, upon uneasy pallets stretching thee, and hushed with buzzing night flies to thy slumber, than in the perfumed chambers of the great, under the canopies of costly state, and lulled with sounds of sweetest melody? O thou dull god, why liest thou with the vile and loathsome beds, and leaves the kingly couch a common watch-case or a larum bell? Wilt thou, upon the high and giddy mast, seal up the ship-boy's eyes, and rock his brains in cradle of the rude imperious surge, and in the visitation of the winds, who take the ruffian billows by the top, curling their monstrous heads, and hanging them with deafening clamor in the slippery shrouds, that with the hurly death itself awakes? Wilt thou, O partial sleep, seal up the ship-boy's eyes, and in the stillest and most calmest night, with all appliances and means to boot, the night to a king? Then, happy, low, lie down. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. Nevertheless, the crown, that glittering prize, always seems worth the struggle to get it. Richard III. Of course, at this stage, he's still Duke of Gloucester. Dreams and schemes as to how he can achieve the crown. The Wars of the Roses are almost over, and his brother has the crown upon his head. And you're quite right, this is to remind me which leg I'm supposed to be. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking-glass, I that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph,
I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I walk by them. Why, love forswore me in my mother's womb, and for I should not deal in her soft laws, she did corrupt frail nature with some bribe, to shrink mine arm up like a withered shrub, to make an envious mountain on my back, to shape my legs of an unequal size, to disproportion me in every part, like to a chaos or an unlicked bear whelp that carries no impression like the dam. Why, I, in this weak, piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to spy my shadow in the sun, and descant on mine own deformity. Then, since this earth affords no joy to me, I make my heaven to dream upon the crown, and whilst I live to account this world but hell, until this misshapen trunk that bears this head be round empaled with a glorious crown. And yet I know not how to get the crown, for many lives stand between me and home. And I, like one lost in a thorny wood that rends the thorns and is rent with the thorns, seeking a way and straying from the way, not knowing how to find the open air, but toiling desperately to find it out, torment myself to catch the English crown. And from that torment I will free myself, or hew my way out with a bloody axe. I can smile and murder whilst I smile, and cry content to that which grieves my heart, and wet my cheeks with artificial tears, and frame my face to all occasions. I'll drown more sailors than the mermaid shall, I'll slay more gazers than the basilisk, I'll play the orator as well as Nestor, deceive more slyly than Ulysses could, and like a Sinon take another Troy. I can add colors to the chameleon, change shapes with Proteus for advantages, and set the murderous Machiavel to school. Can I do this, and cannot get a crown? Were it further off, I pluck it down.
Dreams and ghosts. They have such an effect, a profound effect, on the sensitive mind. High up on the battlements of Elsinore, Hamlet encounters the ghost of his father, and his whole world is overturned. The ghost has told him that his own brother, Hamlet's uncle, who since married the queen, was his murderer, and Hamlet must avenge it. The prince plunges into melancholy and turns his tortured thoughts around and around that terrifying fact, always shying away. I have of late, and wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave or hanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, why, it appeareth no other thing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. What a piece of work is a man how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? A band of traveling players arrives, and at Hamlet's insistence, the leading actor performs a speech about the fall of Troy. It's one of those very showy speeches full of dramatic flourishes. It's grisly, too. It describes the pitiful state of Queen Hecuba, whose husband is hacked to pieces. Hamlet, forgetting his unhappiness for a moment, enjoys the speech for what it is, and then sends the players off to be given a good dinner and such entertainment as Elsinore affords. Now he is alone. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit that from her working, all his visage wand, tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, and all for nothing, for Hecuba? What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? He would drown the stage with tears and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty and appall the free, confound the ignorant and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy mettled rascal, peak like John of Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing, no, not for a king upon whose property and most dear life a damned defeat was made. Am I a coward? Who calls me villain, breaks my paint across, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face, tweaks me by the nose, gives me the lie of the throat as deep as to the lungs? Who doubts me this? Ah! Zounds, I should take it. For it cannot be that I am pigeon-livered, and lack gall to make oppression bitter, or ere this I should have fatted all the region kites with this slave's offal. Bloody, bawdy villain, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain! Oh, vengeance! Why, what an ass am I! This is most brave, that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must like a whore unpack my heart with words and fall a cursing like a very drab, a scullion, fireband, foe, about my brave. I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play have, by the very cunning of the scene, been struck so to the soul that they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder, though it hath no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I'd have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks, I'll tend him to the quick. If he but blench, I know my course. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape, yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. And of course he does kill him in the end. Which brings us to another major Elizabethan preoccupation, death. In an age with a low expectancy of life, there was no saying that any man would actually live out his 7 ages. Indeed, the biblical span of 80 years and 10 was an accomplishment of longevity in Shakespeare's day. You know, he was dead at 52. For king and commoner alike, death waited in the wings. Let's talk of worms, of graves, and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet not so, for what can we bequeath, save our deposed bodies to the ground? And nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth that serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murder. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene, to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh that walls about our life were brass, impregnable. And humor thus comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall. And farewell, king. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. In me thou seest the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as on the deathbed where it must expire, consumed by that which it was nourished by. This thou perceived, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. The sixth age, old age. King Lear, who has given away his kingdom to his two eldest daughters, now finds himself thrust out into a pitiless storm. He is rescued by Cordelia, his youngest daughter, but in the civil war that ensues, they are defeated in battle, and Cordelia is killed. First, the storm.
Blow, winds, and crack your cheeks, rage, blow! You cataracts and hurricanes, spout till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks. You sulphurous and thought-executing fires, vaunt couriers to oak-cleaving thunderbolts, strike flat at the profundity of the world, crack nature's modes, all germane spill at once, that make ingrateful man. Rumble thy belly full, spit fire, spout rain, nor rain, wind, thunder, fire are my daughters. I tax you not, you elements, with unkindness. I never gave you kingdoms, called you children. You owe me no subscription. Then let fall your horrible pleasure. Here I stand, your slave, a poor, infirm, weak, and despised old man. But yet I call you servile ministers, that have with two pernicious daughters joined your high-engendered battles gainst a head so old and white as this. Oh, oh, 'tis foul! 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 Oh, you are men of stone. Had I your tongues and eyes, I'd use them so that heaven's vault should crack. She's gone forever. I know when one is dead and when one lives. She's dead as earth. Lend me a looking glass. If that her breath will mist or stain the stone, why then she lives. This feather stirs. She lives. If it be so, it is a chance which doth redeem all sorrows that ever I have felt. A plague upon you, murderers, traitors all! I might have saved her. Now she's gone forever. Cordelia, Cordelia, stay a little. Huh? What is that said? Her voice was ever soft, gentle and low, an excellent thing in woman.
I killed the slave that was a hanging thee.
No, no, no life. Why should a dog, a horse, a rat have life, and thou no breath at all? Thou come no more. Never. 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 I pray you, sir, undo this button. Thank you. Do you see me? Look on her. Look of ages, thou thy worldly task hast done, home art gone, and ta'en thy wages. Golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers, come to dust. Fear no more the frown of the great, thou art past the tyrant's stroke. Care no more to clothe and eat, to thee the reed is as the oak. The sceptre, learning, physic must all follow this and come to dust. Fear no more the lightning flash, nor the all-dreaded thunderstone. Fear not slander, censure rash, thou hast finished joy and moan. All lovers young, all lovers must consign to thee and come to dust. No exorciser harm thee, nor no witchcraft charm thee. Ghost unlaid forbear thee, nothing ill come near thee. Quiet consummation have, and renowned be thy grave.
The tempest is past. The sixth age has shifted to the seventh. Mere oblivion. But there is another tempest, masterminded by the arch-magician Prospero, who many people see as the personification of William Shakespeare himself. So let him take leave of you. Ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes, and groves, and ye that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune and do fly him when he comes back, you demi-puppets that by moonshine to the green sour ringlets make, whereof the yew not bites, and you whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms that rejoice to hear the solemn curfew, by whose aid, weak masters though ye be, I have bedimmed the noontide sun, called forth the mutinous winds, and twixt the green sea and the azure vault, set roaring war. To the dread rattling thunder have I given fire, and rifted Jove's stout oak with his own boat. The strong-based promontory have I made shake, and by the spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers oped, and let them forth by my so potent art. But this rough magic I here abjure, and when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charms for, I break my star, bury it 7 fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Our revels now are ended. These, our actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit shall dissolve. And like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff
has dreamed on Avon, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. With a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, a foolish thing was but a toy, for the rain it raineth every day. When I came to man's estate, with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, 'gainst knaves and thieves men shut their gate, for the rain it raineth every day. But when I came, alas, to wives, with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, by swaggering could I never strive, for the rain it raineth every day. He that hath a little tiny wit, with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain, must make content with his fortune's pit, for the rain it raineth every day. One last verse. A great while ago, the world began with a hey-ho, the wind and the rain. But that's all one. Our play is done, and we strive to please you every day.